The Trump administration has loosened nutritional standards aimed at making U.S. school lunches healthier that were championed by former First Lady Michelle Obama. New Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue postponed reductions in sodium, relaxed requirements for whole grains and allowed sweetened flavored milk back. 1 in 5 U.S. children is obese, the U.S. government says. More than 30 meters mostly poor children eat federally funded school lunches. The 2010 Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act made federal grants for meals conditional on reductions in calories, sodium and trans fat content and increases in fruit, vegetables and whole grains. But speaking at a primary school in the state of Virginia, Mr. Perdue said some aspects of the standards had gone too far. If kids aren't eating the food, and it's ending up in the trash, they aren't getting any nutrition, thus undermining the intent of the program, he said. The Agriculture Department said the change would give schools greater flexibility. Health campaigners say they are most concerned by the failure to reduce sodium, which is linked to high blood pressure, heart attacks and strokes. The sodium limit for a high school lunch is now about 1,400 milligrams, or 3/4 of the recommended daily maximum, the Center for Science in the Public Interest, CSPI, said. Mr. Perdue's move delays plans to reduce that figure to 1,080 milligrams in this school year. This will lock in very high levels of sodium in school lunches, said Margot Dunn from CSPI. The School Nutrition Association, which represents the industry that sells food to schools as well as cafeteria workers, had lobbied to weaken nutritional standards, particularly those on sodium content. A Harvard University study found that vegetable consumption per student increased 16% from 2011 to 2012, when the healthy eating regulations went into effect. But students continued to discard 40% of their fruit despite the new regulations. The Trump administration on Monday relaxed some rules aimed at making U.S. school lunches healthier, a move viewed by health advocates as a direct hit on former First Lady Michelle Obama's signature issue. U.S. Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue, in one of his first acts after his Senate confirmation last week, signed a proclamation that postpones sodium reductions, makes it easier to serve foods without whole grains, and allows the return of chocolate and strawberry-flavored milk with fat. Certain aspects of the standards have gone too far, said Perdue, speaking at an elementary school in Virginia. The change comes as Donald Trump, one of the more fast food-friendly presidents in recent years, has vowed to slash regulation. The 2010 Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act was championed by Michelle Obama and became a rallying cry for her critics after it set school lunch maximums for calories, cut sodium and artery-clogging trans fat, and required more fruits, vegetables and whole grains. The federally funded U.S. school lunch program, started by President Harry Truman in the 1940s, is overseen by the U.S. Department of Agriculture and feeds more than 30 million, mostly low-income, children. Healthy lunch proponents expressed the most concern about relaxing efforts to reduce excessive dietary sodium, which is linked to high blood pressure, heart attack and stroke. This will lock in very high levels of sodium in school lunches, said Margot Dunn, Director of Nutrition Policy for Center for Science in the Public Interest. The sodium limit for a high school lunch is now about 1,400 milligrams, or 3/4 of the recommended daily maximum, Dunn said. Perdue's proclamation delays plans to reduce that to 1,080 milligrams this school year. The ultimate target is about 740 milligrams in the 2022 school year, Dunn said. Federal nutrition programs should provide nutritious food. That's just good government, not nanny state policies run amok, said Dunn, who added that many schools have adopted the standards and worked through early problems with ingredient availability and taste. The School Nutrition Association, which represents both the industry that sells food to schools and cafeteria workers, has lobbied to weaken the rules, particularly with regard to sodium. Many large food companies are suppliers to the U.S. school lunch program, including Tyson Foods Incorporated, Cargill Incorporated, Gagg-Toll, and General Mills Incorporated. Domino's Pizza Incorporated delivers to schools as part of its Smart Slice program. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is easing school lunch regulations spearheaded by the Obama administration. Newly minted Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue unveiled a new interim rule on Monday to suspend sodium reduction requirements and whole grain requirements, as well as allow 1% fat-flavored milk back into school cafeterias nationwide. The new rules will take effect during the 2017 to 2018 school year. "I wouldn't be as big as I am today without chocolate milk," Perdue said in his remarks to reporters. Critics say the new rules will roll back the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act championed by former First Lady Michelle Obama, who worked to establish strict nutritional standards on the program as part of her campaign against obesity. "We're not winding back any standards at all," Perdue said. "We are just slowing down the process." "I applaud former First Lady Michelle Obama for addressing those obesity problems in the past," he said. Perdue recalled hearing from many students who have complained about fat-free and reduced-fat chocolate milk offered in schools. In light of these palatability issues, Perdue said he decided to make a change. "This is not reducing the nutritional standards whatsoever," he said. The former Georgia governor was joined by Senate Agriculture Chairman Pat Roberts at an elementary school in Leesburg, Virginia during the lunch hour for the announcement. "Try eating a biscuit made with whole grains," Roberts said. "It just doesn't work." Just before the remarks, the two sat for a meal with Catoctin elementary students on long lunch tables and munched on fruit, carrots and some bread out of a lunch tray. "What do you do as Secretary of Agriculture?" a student asked. "We try to keep your food safe," Perdue responded. Perdue's new interim rule is meant to provide regulatory flexibility for the National School Lunch Program, which is a federally assisted meal program that provides nutritionally balanced reduced-cost or free lunches to children. The 2010 law was a part of Michelle Obama's Let's Move initiative. It aimed to help transform the school food environment in order to promote better nutrition built upon recommendations from the Institute of Medicine. The law requires that students are offered fruits and vegetables every day, have whole grain-rich foods, fat-free or low-fat milk, and have meals with reduced sugars and sodium. Republicans, farmers and school groups have long since lobbied for lunch reform, saying the current rules are overly restrictive and costly to implement. According to USDA figures, school food requirements cost school districts and states an additional $1.22 billion in fiscal year 2015. During the remarks, a small group stood outside the school to protest the secretary's remarks. "There have been no changes to the program," said State Department spokesperson Heather Nauert, referring to the Let Girls Learn initiative, which Obama launched in 2015. The administration supports policies and programs to empower adolescent girls, including efforts to educate them through the completion of secondary school. "We are committed to empowering women and girls around the world and are continuing to examine the best ways to do so." The White House's response came after an internal Trump administration document showed plans to end the Let Girls Learn program, which facilitates educational opportunities for adolescent girls in developing countries. "Moving forward, we will not continue to use the Let Girls Learn brand or maintain a standalone program," read an email sent to Peace Corps employees this week by the agency's acting director Sheila Crowley. Let Girls Learn provided a platform to showcase the Peace Corps' strength in community development, shining a bright light on the work of our volunteers all over the world, Crowley wrote. "We are so proud of what Let Girls Learn accomplished, and we have all of you to thank for this success." The White House originally referred questions about the program to representatives for First Lady Melania Trump, who declined to comment. In their comment, The White House did not say whether Let Girls Learn would be maintained in the future as a standalone program, and they also did not directly address the memo or why it had been sent. In the agency memo, Crowley indicated that aspects of the initiative's programming focusing on girls' education around the world would continue, a sentiment reinforced in a statement from a Peace Corps spokesman on Monday. The Peace Corps continues to prioritize girls' education and empowerment programming, the spokesman said. Girls' education and empowerment has been a hallmark of our work over the past 56 years, and we look forward to continuing those efforts with our interagency partners. We remain dedicated to the passionate work of our volunteers and staff to empower and educate girls in their communities. A spokesperson for the United States Agency for International Development, which, along with the Peace Corps, implements the Let Girls Learn program, also said the organization would continue to support girls' educational programs. There have been no changes to the Let Girls Learn program, USAID said in a statement. The administration supports policies and programs to empower adolescent girls, including efforts to educate them through the completion of secondary school. We are committed to empowering women and girls around the world and are continuing to examine the best ways to do so. A USAID spokesperson declined to comment on whether the agency would continue to use the Let Girls Learn branding or operate the program as a standalone entity. The Trump administration took aim Monday at two signature programs of the former First Lady Michelle Obama, rolling back her efforts to promote healthy school lunches nationwide and potentially rebranding her program to educate adolescent girls abroad. Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue announced that school meals would no longer have to meet some requirements connected with Mrs. Obama's initiative to combat childhood obesity by overhauling the nation's school menus. The nutrition regulations were part of the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010 and were advocated by Mrs. Obama's Let's Move campaign. For the last 5 years, schools have been required to reduce the amount of calories, fat and sodium in their cafeterias and increase offerings of whole grains, fruits and vegetables, and non-fat milk to the roughly 32 million students who receive federally subsidized meals. Beginning next school year, schools can request an exemption from the whole grain requirements and delay the sodium mandate. They will also be able to serve 1% flavored milk instead of non-fat. Continue reading the main story. 100 Days, the Trump White House. The historic moments, head-spinning developments and inside the White House intrigue. Trump follows instincts, not establishment, with overtures to Kim and Duterte. May 1. Why Congress's bipartisan budget deal should make Trump worried. May 1. You are the best, Trump once told Pelosi. Can they deal again? May 1. Gorsuch, in sign of independence, is out of Supreme Court's clerical pool. May 1. Congress allocates $120 million for Trump family's security costs. May 1. See more. Mr. Perdue said the Obama-era rules had resulted in increased costs for school districts and declining participation in the federal school lunch program. He said relaxing the rules was part of the administration's effort to make school meals great again. If kids aren't eating the food, and it's ending up in the trash, they aren't getting any nutrition, thus undermining the intent of the program, said Mr. Perdue, who announced the changes with a signed proclamation on Monday after having lunch with students at Catoctin Elementary School in Leesburg, Virginia. Mr. Perdue, a former governor of Georgia, was just confirmed last week. Nutrition advocates said the move by the Trump administration was short-sighted. Just because children would rather eat heavily salted, processed foods at school doesn't mean they should, said Kent Cook, president of the Environmental Working Group. The president's fondness for Big Macs and KFC is well known, but we shouldn't let Colonel Sanders and McDonald's run the school cafeteria. Since schools began complying with the nutrition standards in 2012, many have complained that they are too stringent and costly. The new rules were projected to cost $3.2 billion over 5 years, but Mr. Perdue said they had cost states an additional $1.22 billion in the 2015 fiscal year alone. Congress has allowed states to apply for waivers if they cannot meet certain standards. Nancy Brown, chief executive of the American Heart Association, said in a statement that schools were moving forward to meet the requirements. The organization denounced the Agriculture Department's relaxation of the rules, noting that more sodium and sugar would increase students' blood pressure and put them at great risk of heart disease and strokes. Ms. Brown said her organization was very disappointed that the USDA has decided to put special interests back on the school menu, and added, "We strongly urge the agency and Congress not to give politics priority over the health of our children." Last month, Senator Pat Roberts, a Kansas Republican who leads the Senate Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry, asked Mr. Perdue to have the Agriculture Department provide immediate relief from the regulations, some of which were to take effect July 1. On Monday, Mr. Roberts accompanied Mr. Perdue in his announcement, which coincided with the start of School Nutrition Employee Week. Representatives of the National School Nutrition Association cheered the regulatory rollback. "We have been wanting flexibility so that schools can serve meals that are both nutritious and palatable," said the group's chief executive, Patricia Montague. "This flexibility will be welcomed in at least one part of the country," Mr. Perdue said. "A perfect example is in the South, where the schools want to serve grits," he said. "But the whole grain variety has little black flakes in it, and the kids won't eat it. The school is compliant with the whole grain requirements, but no one is eating the grits. That doesn't make any sense." The Trump administration also indicated on Monday that it was eyeing another program Mrs. Obama promoted. It was not clear how serious the administration was about targeting the program, Let Girls Learn, which was spearheaded by President Barack Obama and Mrs. Obama in 2015 to increase educational opportunities for adolescent girls who face physical danger and other obstacles to going to school. In a letter circulated internally this week, a Peace Corps official said the initiative would no longer use the Let Girls Learn brand or operate as a discrete program, according to people familiar with the document, which was first reported by CNN. A senior administration official said there was no plan to end or even rebrand the program, calling the letter a result of an unauthorized and erroneous decision by a career government employee. When Secretary of State Rex W. Tillerson's staff learned of the memo on Monday, they insisted that it be reviewed, said the official, who discussed private deliberations on the condition of anonymity. R.C. Hammond, Mr. Tillerson's spokesman, declined to answer questions, providing only a terse statement that said, "No changes have been made to the Let Girls Learn program." He referred additional queries to the Peace Corps, which did not return phone calls and emails seeking comment. But former officials expressed alarm that members of Mr. Trump's administration would even consider trying to redefine an initiative that gained traction, and its name, under Mrs. Obama's stewardship after the world reacted with outrage to the kidnapping of nearly 300 schoolgirls in Nigeria by the Boko Haram terrorist group. If this administration wants to move in a different direction on girls' education, that's certainly their right and understandable, but to tear down a message that was erected in the wake of this terrible incident that happened in Nigeria, and that the world rallied around, I think it is really shameful, said Brett Blitzbrun, an Obama administration official who helped create the program. The initiative predated Mrs. Obama's involvement, but she traveled the world and recruited dozens of celebrities, including Alicia Keys, Anne Hathaway, and Shonda Rhimes, to promote and participate in it. It was effective before the First Lady got involved, and it became even more powerful when her brand and her office were associated with it, Mr. Brun said. And to say we're going to stop the campaign or change it just to distance it from her is to undermine everything that was achieved.